Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening to the Goodness Village podcast. My name is Hunter Van Dam. I'm the operations director for the Village, and I have the pleasure of sitting down with Officer Andrew Graycar with Livermore Police Department. Andy, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
You have such an energy and such a reputation here in Goodness Village, but I've never had the chance to sit down and actually meet you. We've been in passing. A lot of my job is behind the scenes office stuff, but you are up front. Almost all of our neighbors know you. So it's really cool to get to know you, sit down with you, and, record a conversation. So again, thanks for being here.
Awesome.
So Andy, do you mind just kind of giving, 30,000 foot view, who you are, what you do?
Yeah. Well, I've been with Livermore PD now for 18 years. The first 14 years I spent working patrol predominantly on the graveyard shift. And then in January 2020, I had the opportunity to become a homeless liaison officer for the department. And I remained in that role up until January of this year when I transitioned into another program. So for 4 years, I was one of two homeless liaison officers the department had.
Okay. Yeah. So what is that? So especially during COVID, what did that look like?
Oh, COVID. That was a curveball I don't think any of us were expecting, right? And it happened shortly after I started in the position. The homeless liaison program is it is not a program based on enforcement. It's a program based on really connecting unsheltered clients to services in Livermore or throughout the area, and trying to get them to move forward, right, and improving their status any way we can. When we're not responding to complaints or calls for service that are involving some unsheltered clients, then we're actively engaging with all the unsheltered people that are in the community. So just proactively contacting and checking in and getting to know, I think, everyone's stories. So that way you get to know them more on a personal level, which I think is key to try and actually to help them, right? Because if you're treating everyone with the same paintbrush, if you will, it just doesn't work. Everyone comes from different circumstances and they ended up in this position for many different reasons. But I think that was the most rewarding because as a patrol officer, we're basically going from call to call to call. So you don't have the opportunity a lot of times to take the time to understand the full story and how someone came to be. And in the homeless liaison program, we actually were given that opportunity. And so you build these relationships and you really start, it develops just like that. I mean, it develops into a friendship. And then when you start seeing people move forward and getting connected to services and maybe getting sober or getting a job, eventually getting housed, it feels amazing. So that was something kind of cool that I never experienced before because I never got to see something all the way through, So I didn't expect that the position was going to give me so much. I wasn't really expecting anything out of it.
Yeah.
But it really just kind of filled that kind of like that heart tank, if you will, So I really enjoyed the program a lot.
Yeah, you mentioned this idea of building relationships with folks. At the Village, we got 28 neighbors, so we got 28 stories and different reasons of why people ended up in the situations that they are. But now we are rewriting those 28 stories. And like you mentioned, people are finding support, people are finding sobriety, finding really what their next healthy steps are. And that's just the story of the Village. That sounds like it's the story of your work being a homeless liaison officer. And even on a macro level, what the Livermore Police Department, even just the Livermore community, Tri-Valley community, is really trying to do for this population of folks that often are resorted down or just seen as a number or a case file or, this is the 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever thing's wrong with them.
Right.
And it takes the humanity out of it.
And I think, there's such a high turnover, like within, like social work. A lot of the clients that we worked with over the years, they told their story time and time and time again, and people would quit and move on to a different organization. And so their case would end up on somebody else's caseload. And, they just started feeling like they were forgotten, and that was the cool thing is we were always the constant. We always made sure that if we told someone we're going to be there at a certain date and time, that we're going to be there for them, and to keep that trust. Because sometimes it may, depending on the individual, maybe it takes a few hours to gain some rapport. Maybe it's a few days, maybe it's a few weeks, maybe even a few months, right? And so when you've put that much time and effort into gaining that trust and having someone trust you enough so that way you can maybe drive them to that appointment or take them to the Social Security office or wherever it is, you definitely don't want to violate that like others maybe have, whether unintentional or not, right? Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Yeah, the idea of that constant is profound. With my approach to Goodness Village, like I said, I'm kind of the office behind the scenes guy, staff support, but I get to flaunt about how our program is affordable and permanent. Really, the programmatic and housing piece of it is the constant. There's not the 90-day or 6-month turnaround. Having you and your team being aware of that idea that people build relationships with individuals. So whenever there's a call, you're the person that is a familiar face.
Right.
That building of trust is so crucial, I would think, to what your role is, and even just understanding what it means to be unhoused out there.
Yeah. And that's, we drive around in a Ford F-150 black and white Livermore police vehicle, but unlike regular patrol cars, when we're driving to these encampment areas, where we have like a group of individuals that may be living, they come to the truck. Like when they see the truck, they know like, okay, this is the homeless liaison guys, and they actively will come out of the encampments and come and engage with us, talk with us, let us know what the latest drama is or whatever it is, versus kind of going the opposite way, which is more typical with a regular patrol officer. So, although I want them to feel comfortable with everyone, I understand the reasoning behind that. But it's good. Like I always tell, I would contact several organizations that were doing outreach, and I always told them, I said, hey, if you have a hard time finding a particular client, just reach out to us. I said, call us, and I can tell you exactly where they're at, or I can help bring you to them. And at first, I think a lot of people were like, yeah, no, thanks. I appreciate that. But after a while, once they realized, hey, man, these guys really are our same team. They are trying to get everyone connected to some like meaningful services, not just like check a box, right?
Right.
Then we started getting a lot of cooperation from various organizations. And even with this, even with the Goodness Village program, early on, getting clients' paperwork done so their applications are in, making sure they get here to the appointments. A lot of those we drove the clients. Like we'd find them, we'd drive over here, because it's not like they have phones or computers and they're responding to emails or So it was really like some teamwork between Goodness Village and CityServe and a few others, and communicating with us and just making sure we were able to get people to where they needed to go, because sometimes it requires that relationship, like where you're kind of holding their hand a little bit and helping guide them, and that's okay,
Yeah, and it's so fascinating to hear that being the beginning of so many people's stories, so many of our GB neighbors and their story of you knowing them and then helping them fill out paperwork and then driving them here to the village. You mentioned people don't have phones or, the ability to connect or the ability to get services.
Right.
I'm thinking about the 28 folks we have here. All but one have a phone now because we've had those services in place.
Right.
And that one guy doesn't have a phone because he keeps on losing it. So that's different
Yeah.
that's not an access thing.
I bet you I know his name.
But it's just again, it's fascinating to see and to hear that it really boils down to that relationship and that community aspect of it that you and folks that like you have really built within the unhoused community, connecting them with the resources and the housing and the support that's available.
Absolutely. I think, for the most part, whether people realize it or not, I think some people have an implicit bias maybe on people that are unhoused, or maybe just a tainted worldview for some reason or another. But truly, there's countless reasons why someone ends up in that situation. And a lot of it's trauma-based. or running away from something that was horrible that they dealt with. But I think when you get to that point when a person feels comfortable enough to let their guard down, to like let you know some of that stuff, and you get to understand the person more and how they came to be, like I said, it helped me just go the extra distance. You know what I mean? Even when there was days where they weren't really receptive and stuff, I just kept trying. You just got to be persistent, because some days, people have good days. Sometimes people have bad days, right? But
everyone does, whether you're on the streets or not.
It's just being the persistent, and sometimes they're sober and sometimes they're not. But this was, like I said, Goodness Village, it's unlike any other program that I've been exposed to. There's other programs that maybe are similar in appearance by design, but not the way that you guys are running things. Because one of the neat things is almost all the people that I know that have come to move into Goodness Village, it seems like your staff really took the time to understand what their hobbies were, what their talents were, and if they were interested in art, then they pushed them towards art. If they were interested in gardening, then they pushed them towards that. If they were, super handy with a barbecue, then they did that, right?
Yep.
But, in doing that, it gave them something again. And then a lot of them have, from what I've been told, are selling art and selling things at, some of the farmers markets, and they're working again. And, and it's just awesome. But it's that constant support with the staff, treating the person as an individual instead of just, a group, if you will. And the 24/7, I mean, you've got everyone here, and it's not just, someone that's, here just for a certain amount of hours and they clock out and leave. It seems like everyone's really vested and they care about the residents here. And I think that's why it's so successful. So my hat's off to you, because it's been great. So
thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
It's the team. It's the whole effort and the mission behind what we're trying to do. To comment on what you were saying, it takes time to build that relationship, but also, being unhoused, the homeless community is not a monolith. There's not a one size fits all to everyone's, to find a solution for everybody. But again, that builds with the rapport that is established before people move in, and then as they grow here. We're talking about neighbors that have an art studio now, or people that are working full time. That took them months or years before they were even open to those ideas. It really took a lot of time and effort from our team to really understand, okay, what's this person's passions? What are they afraid of? What makes them work? And then let's try to come alongside them and support them in the positive and help them understand what the negatives are, just so everyone can move forward to become their best selves. You know?
I think it's cool too, because it's truly a community, I love how, there's movie nights and there's potlucks, and your staff's really good about bringing people together. And then, a lot of people have jobs here at the site too, and so everyone has a lot of buy-in. This isn't just, something that was just, offered to them and that was it. I think when you allow people to take part in building this community, you're just going to get that much more out of it, from everybody. So I just think it's great, because every time I come here, it's not like, why are there cops here? It's always kind of like everyone comes out and, and generally have a few good conversations and stuff and reconnect with people I haven't seen for a while. And just seeing how good they're doing, it's just awesome.
Yeah, there's such a positive sense of pride around here. And it's just so astounding to see people take pride in their community, where they're doing, people are enrolled in our vocational program, which is a lot of landscaping and housekeeping and kind of keeping the property clean and welcoming. They're doing that because they want to do it. And heck, if it counts for their vocational program, great. But they're out there making sure this place looks clean and safe for themselves, for their neighbors, for people that visit, even just the reputation within the community, which, we've only been here for not even 3 years. And the fact that we have a good stake in this community is astounding. And again, I'm going to point it back to you and your team and the folks that even help Goodness Village take off and to be built, that started before we had people move in. So thank you for you and your effort and your team to build that relationships in that community to help us succeed.
Well, that was the easy part, to be honest, because, at the time, I want to say we had roughly 300, by the point in time count, we had about 300 people that were homeless within Livermore. And, of that, there's generally 140, 150 that are truly unsheltered, like living out on the street or in a vehicle. And a lot of the housing opportunities that would come up for people were based on a model, and I can't remember if we talked about this already, but the housing first model. So what that means is the people that are, not justice involved, the people that might not have substance abuse issues, or at least never been arrested, the people that are trying to do the right thing. Maybe they're working a little bit, but they don't quite make enough to, rent a room somewhere. Like those people don't fit into that mold for the housing first model. So it's like they're getting punished by doing the right things almost, it seems like. I'm like, this is counterproductive. So when Kim Curtis reached out to us and told us about the village and the vision, it was like this amazing opportunity to actually give those that were so deserving and ready to take that next step, the opportunity to be part of a community like this. So it was really cool. So we helped in the early stages of giving our recommendations and helping vet applicants and stuff, and just trying to make this a really successful, stable community. So that way, as time progressed, then the community can then take on maybe some harder cases, and then the community would just wrap around and help support that person, when they came here. So it seems like things are going really well, because I've even heard of some clients, moving off and moving into other things, even though this is like a permanent place. Like they could stay here as long as they want, right? It's not like you guys are kicking them out, but and to hear that life is going so well for them to move on to the next chapter, to give someone else an opportunity to move in here, that's phenomenal.
Yeah,
so
it's definitely a bittersweet moment when we have a neighbor move out.
Right.
And I'm trying to think. Yeah, just about everybody that has moved out of our community has moved on to bigger, better things, whether it's reconnecting with family or we help them get their VA benefits or something that they are owed and deserved. And then, I have this funding and the support. Let me go take this somewhere else. We love everybody that's been part of the community, part of the village, and we're definitely cheering them on as they move on to, like I said, the bigger, better things out there.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. So thank you for being part of the podcast. I want to be respectful of your time, but I do have one last question for you.
Yeah.
And you can take this as, as the homeless liaison officer, as law enforcement, as just Andy sitting across the table. What is something that you wish people better understood about you?
I'm not really a closed off person, so I'm pretty, I've been in this profession a long time, and I'm a lot more relaxed than the young kid I was when I first started. You know what I mean? So I think in the proper situation, I let the people that I work with and the people that I'm contacting know a little bit about, myself or my family or whatever. So I'm not as closed off as I once was, but I freely talk about all sorts of stuff. But the homeless liaison program, I can tell you 100% has changed me, period. And in my new position as a mobile evaluation team officer, I'm paired with a mental health clinician, and I'm continuing that work, right? So where I see the value is in helping people that are truly in need, right? And people that are in mental health crisis is the same thing. And I get to work with some of the clients that I've been working with the last 4 years still, which is kind of neat. But I chose to continue down that path versus maybe the more stereotypical path where I'd be trying to promote up or do other things. This is just where my heart's at now. So it's just been awesome. I told the chief several times, I said, look, if you can keep me in the homeless liaison program, I will stay here till the day I retire. I'm that happy doing this, but unfortunately, you've got to give other people opportunities too. So we've got 2 new guys out there that are just tremendous, and they're carrying on the same work. And I know Officer Warnke and Durmake are doing nothing but making us proud and keeping those relationships going. And, so yeah, it's been awesome.
Fantastic. Andy, thank you so much for being on the podcast. We hope to see you again here soon.
All right.
Thanks for listening to the Goodness Village podcast. Production and recording was done by the Village's operations team and in collaboration with Crosswinds Church. Music was created by Club 88 member AJ Parr. If you want to know more about Club 88, this podcast, or Goodness Village, please visit our website at gvlivermore.org. Thanks again for listening to The Good Pod.